Welcome, everyone. You're listening to How We Heal the podcast. I'm Kira Noel, medical intuitive, your host. Our sponsor is the medicinebuddhawithin.com, intuitive training for all. Check out their website and be registered to be invited to all the upcoming trainings. Now let's begin our show. My guest today is Susan Kennard, who is very beyond what I'd call traditional training. She's brought to light our own ability to connect to source and bring in what I think it easily feels like the family that we all need, this connection to clarity, our specific purpose, our how do we evolve into that. A psychology student. She completely transformed her life at about the age of 27. Something very significant happened, and I'm going to have her share about that. And she's a boundless resource for energies and fields of energy that are in our world to help us all evolve. So I want to introduce you to Susan, who is not a resident of the United States currently, right?
No, definitely not. I'm in the UK.
Well, I'd have to say, lucky you.
Maybe sometimes we have, I love living here, but the weather is obviously not as good as in the States usually.
The weather. Yep.
Yeah.
And I've just, a little bit touched on items that have happened in your story that maybe brought that beginning of a huge shift in the way you work. So I'd love for you to share with our listeners how you found healing in your own life.
Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me. First of all, Keir, thank you for inviting me on your podcast. And I would say that it was around about the age of 27. And about that time is when we have something called a Saturn return in astrology. So we have this Saturn return. It's about that time. And of course, if I knew that then, probably make life a lot easier. But at the time, obviously, I had no knowledge of any of this. I was kind of fumbling through life, and I was trained to be a psychotherapist, and I was very analytical. I'm a scientist by trade, and so everything for me needed to be analyzed. And I had this awakening. Of course, we have many awakenings in our life, but this was a significant one. And what it was I was obviously training in psychotherapy, and I had this awakening where an ex-boyfriend of mine took his life. So he took his life. He was really young. So I was only in my, as I just said, 27. He was something like 34, 35, coming up to 35. And I wasn't with him at the time. We were friends. It was an ex-boyfriend, but I found out from his girlfriend, and he lived in New Zealand. And I found out from his girlfriend. I had a phone call in the middle of the night, and she said to me, I need to tell you about Martin, because it was like 3 a.m. or something, So obviously it was very sad, but I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, that's really sad. It was really awful. But it was more about the actual act of someone passing away. And then weirdly, things started to happen. And I had this experience a few months later where I actually felt that someone was in the room. And this time I lived in London. I was in a flat by myself in London. I live on the coast now by the sea, but I was in a flat. And I remember this sense of feeling like there was a dog in the room and there was someone in the room. Now, Martin actually had a dog, and the dog had passed 6 months previous to him. It was like a sausage dog, a hot dog, we called it. And and it was very fat, and it was very wobbly. He loved that dog. And I sensed, I didn't know, of course, because I was still asleep, kind of, but I had this sense that someone was in the room. Now, at this point, I was definitely not spiritual, definitely not aware of anything. I kind of knew what the moon was about, and I knew what nature was about, but I really didn't have any awakening knowledge of who we were. And so this happened, and I was scared, really scared, because I felt like, wow, I can't move. I felt somebody trying to wake me up on my shoulder, and I felt that, I couldn't do anything, but I definitely knew someone was in the room. So then fast forward 3 months, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking it was going to happen every night. I didn't want it to happen again because I had no idea it was Martin. And so a friend of mine said, I'm fed up with you keeping on about this. I'm going to get you a reading. Well, I didn't know what a reading was. I'd never had a reading in my life. And this lady sat down with me. She didn't know me. She didn't know anything about me. And she sat with me and she said, I have someone here for you. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she went, he's this, he's that. He looks like this. And he's really sorry that he frightened you, who was just trying to let you know that he was okay. Right. And of course, floods of tears. I had no idea, it was like, and then at the end, so there's lots of information that she said to me that no one knew. We used to travel to New Zealand together. We had holidayed together. We'd spent time that no one would have known about. Right. And particular places that we'd been to. And she reeled them all off. And then she looked at my hands. It was in the days when you did things physically. Right. And she looked at my hands and she said, and by the way, you're walking the path of a master psychic. And I went, I never know what that is. And I'm not interested. I'm a psychologist. I'm into research. At that time, I was researching trauma, which is my specialism, but researching trauma. And I said, oh, yeah, I'm not interested. So I kind of like really dismissed it. And then things started to happen within me. And I started to know things, and I started to have an awareness. And what I decided to do was to disprove it. So I tried to disprove it. Yeah, well, that's me. And so I tried to disprove it. And I went to the College of Psychic Studies, which is in Kensington in London. And I went to lots of talks, and I went to, kind of try and disprove that this wasn't anything, that it was all rubbish and people didn't really see people and they didn't really, I couldn't disprove it. And what I realized, now my soul was guiding me there to actually awaken these abilities that I had no idea I had. My soul knew I had, but I didn't know as a human. And I remember sitting, Angela Watkins, I'll always remember her. She was my tutor at the time. And she said, what can you see? And I said, I can't see anything. Can't see anything at all. And she said, what can you see? And she put her hand behind my back, and I started to see this scene with an old gentleman in his house and so on. And I had my partner that I was working with at the time in this group next to me. And I said, I can see this man, I can see the kitchen, I can see. She goes, that's my granddad. He was coming through, et cetera. And I was brought up with him and so on. Well, after that, you it's like, how can you're not making it up. You know that there's something. And then time went on, and I started to read a lot, and I explored a lot. And
what are you doing in your professional life at this point?
I was a psychologist in child protection.
Okay.
So I was in that science kind of role, research and so on, into trauma and drugs and alcohol and addiction. And I was living this parallel life as a psychic. And in those days, you just didn't talk about it. It was weird. People didn't talk about it. So I ended up, and this is fast forward, I ended up working on the platforms in London, which is the spiritual platforms at the spiritual churches, giving evidence of survival, which I never thought I would ever do.
Okay, explain to me, for listeners too, what do you mean evidence of survival?
To help people realize that life goes on. For those that have passed over.
So now you're working with spirit.
So I was working with spirit, and literally I was able to see them, I could hear them, I could chat to them. And I had no idea that was part of the early part of my path, right? And then fast forward now, so that was my awakening. I shut it down for quite a while. So I decided, no, not interested, don't really want to do this anymore. And I just got on with my career, and, was a psychologist and then a psychotherapist. And worked and did lots of research. And then I started to open up again after I'd shut it down, opened up again, and started to kind of, when I was working with the children and the parents, I started to get loads of intuition. And as I'm looking at the cases, before I even knew what the case was, I knew what the case was.
Wow.
So in a meeting, I would know, my boss would hand me the case paper for child protection, and I would know before I knew. And so, okay, there's something here that is much stronger than we think we are. So I trained as a naturopath, and I decided I would look at the whole body, and I would look at healing, and I would look at everything, put it all together. I was dabbling. I was like finding what was going on here.
For your
yeah. And that was kind of my awakening. That was the start of everything.
So do you have children at this point? Okay, no. All right. Okay.
They come later.
Okay. So you're really exploring. Plus you're doing this very, very difficult, emotionally difficult work with
serious work.
Families that are having trauma.
Yeah. And so in the office, all my colleagues would say, can you do a reading for me? Can you do this? Can you do that? And actually in my working life, I was having to stay very between the red tape, But in the fun side of it, I was doing these readings for people. So it was kind of like a second life that
Yeah. You're exploring.
I was exploring. Yeah.
And did you ever formally end this, the work which was scientifically oriented? Did you ever formally end that part of your life?
I don't think you ever formally end it when you are a scientist. And I'm now known as a spiritual scientist because my background in science, and there's a lot more science that was added on to my work. So I ended up doing neuropsychology. I ended up working in meta health. You've heard of meta health. So
Yes, of
looking at
course.
meta consciousness. So I ended up looking at that. But there's so much to this story. But I think the main thing about it, I realized that I'd stepped out of this spiritual closet. And I was
Very good.
very
That's
much in
interesting.
it. I was very much like, I'm a psychologist. I'm not interested in anything that isn't evidence based. Well, of course, what did I choose? I needed to be clairvoyant. I needed to be clairvoyant. I needed to hear spirit. I needed to feel them. I needed the whole lot. Because imagine if I hadn't have been given that, I never would have gone down that road.
Well, because I was imagining as you were discussing or describing how you started that journey of
Yeah,
exploring who you might be and what was available to you, how because of your training, you might be suspicious and guarded and not bringing it close and just keeping it, do that
exactly.
on the weekend, maybe, but not in
Yeah,
my day-to-day life. And
exactly.
did that go on for quite a while, kind of carrying the two sides of yourself?
It's so hard because I'm 56 nearly near now, and I'm like, wow, it just feels like my previous life. But it just kind of meandered and life went on, and I kept that side of me where I understood who we were. And I used to teach that. I used to speak to people about it, but I wouldn't write that in my reports. So I was in child protection. So I would speak to my children, the children and the clients and so on. But in my reports, I kept it very psychological, but
Oh,
to
that's
help
interesting.
them.
And
Yeah.
when I look at what you are, who you are in the world today,
Mm,
you have this like enormous capacity to bring other beings
yeah.
into a communication with
Yeah.
all of us. That is
Mm,
so not who you were trained to be. It is not who
mhm.
you were maybe even emotionally prepared to be. And you're so in the world doing it. It's kind of fascinating to me that you could jump that far into
Yeah.
that field. Now I want to share with you that I have a teacher I see occasionally, and was it about a year and a half ago? Yes, I went to London where he was doing a talk for a
Oh,
weekend,
wow. Yeah.
and his communication level is not the same as yours, but it has a lot of the same qualities.
Mm,
He uses light and sound to bring it's very hard to describe, but it's an attunement, vibrational and light entry into the body to clear
yeah.
you. And he
Yeah.
uses light to clear us, to heal us. And what I was fascinated about when I read about your work is that you say the clearest thing I've heard from a person who brings that awakened self into the world. We have the healer in us
Uh-huh.
for us.
Be
And
important.
I so align with that truth. And
Yeah.
when we can accept the power of that authentic being in us that has
Yeah.
the capacity to just be transformed,
Yeah.
be completely present,
Yeah.
how what we thought we were is so, it's like we were looking at ourselves in a tunnel. We weren't really seeing the whole person.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And I feel like it is my mission to help people align to their mission and remember who they are and remember that they are the healer within. Of course, we need facilitators. And of course, that's why we have people to help us and support us and guide us. But fundamentally, we have all the answers within. And I always say that if we stripped away the jacket, which is obviously our physical body, and we strip that away just for a few minutes, what we would have inside is just pure source light. And it's only when we put the jacket back on that we say, I can't do that. I'm not good enough. I'm this, that, and the other. But when we take it off just for a second through process and connection and so on, actually, we remember who we are. And in that moment, we were never meant to hold trauma. We were never meant to have dis-ease. We were never meant to have that. And I think this time of ascension, and I call it ascension, but this time that we're living in now is a time to remember that. And
Mm.
That I feel is my mission, to help people heal themselves and remember that they can heal themselves and live why they're truly here.
And when did you feel that this is the time for that? When was that category of the time for you? I had that feeling too. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just evolved over time. So, I mean, I worked with veterans for a long time. So, I had this kind of stepping stone from where we were talking earlier. A stepping stone happened. I became a single parent. I became somebody who wanted to really difference in the world in a different way, and not in a necessarily in the psychologist hat, but actually as somebody who was being seen differently in the world. And so I specialized with the early childhood trauma that veterans had experienced, which led them to be diagnosed with PTSD. And that started my speaking career, which I didn't even mean to do either. And I just got asked to speak. Everything I do is like I don't mean to do it. Like
Mm.
I just meander through life. But essentially, I started to notice a trend, and I started to notice a correlation between diagnosis of war veterans and childhood trauma. And that's where many of my processes, which I teach now, actually were formed and born from working with veterans. And I started to do that work with them, which kind of opened the doors for me to be given from spirit many different processes. And these processes, I've written my book, Awaken the Light Within Your Heart. And some of those processes are in the back of that book, actually, which are self healing. But essentially, what I find now is that that journey of seeing the veterans transform their lives from wanting to take their life to feeling guilty that they survived and, you know, their mate didn't survive on the battlefield, to actually accessing the part of them that created the science bit, raising the cortisol and adrenaline so that they chose something that normalized that cortisol and adrenaline. And we see that with abuse situations. So people that have
Yeah.
had,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. You know that. Yeah.
Yes.
So, you know, childhood abuse or high intensity trauma at a very early age, even in the womb, right? And epigenetically, of course. But just talking about this lifetime, for example, and you know, I noticed that when they healed those parts of them that had been almost like that catalyst for
Mhm.
the raising of the cortisol and adrenaline and all of that, they actually started to heal the PTSD. So that symptomatic framework that they were labeled with, where they couldn't go out of the house, they didn't want to be here, they felt all this guilt and shame, they started to heal that very, very quickly, and then started to set up charities and work with other veterans. And I just feel I've always wanted to do this. And I noticed that these veterans transform their lives. So as they did that, I realized that actually there was a success element to healing your childhood trauma, that actually the walls that people put up, the emotional walls that people put up, actually stop them from truly being the best version of themselves. So that allowed me to organically open doors for me to work with more people, help more people, run groups, create, you know, a community, a small community to start with. And I realized that actually this was about mission. This was about people aligning to the truth of who they are. And when we heal that part of us that feels disconnected to source or disconnected to God, some people call God source, the universe, it doesn't matter to me. The feeling of disconnection feels like you're separated. So when you feel
Mm.
separated, this is just what I found in my work. When you feel separated, you don't put yourself out in the world. You don't feel enough. You don't, all these things happen, and the walls and the barriers are there. So that was the journey where I noticed it with veterans first. And then it all made sense to me that actually I used the processes that I use with veterans with people that didn't have PTSD, that just had things that were happening in their life, you know, relationship things and all sorts of things that happen in our life, you know. And I realized that actually that evolvement, and this is, we're talking years ago now, how that kind of evolved. And then more evolvement and more evolvement. And I realized that what I'm here for is to help people align to their mission. And when we align to our mission, our truth of who we are, our body doesn't need to show a message. And I'll just do a disclaimer, I'm not a doctor and I don't claim to heal or cure. But I do believe that the doctor is within you, your own doctor is within you. And I
Yes,
believe
yes,
that when, you are aligning to your mission, what you're really here for could be anything. Doesn't have to be a spiritual thing. It can be what you're really lit up with in service. When you are aligned to that, why does your body need to show a message? Why would it? Doesn't need to. Because I believe the body is the barometer for the soul, right? So
Mhm.
your body is talking to you because your soul is trying to convey, you need to love yourself more. You need to align a bit more to this. This is what we're trying to talk to you about, meaning your higher self. So
Right.
it's a beautiful journey. And if someone comes to me and they've been told that they have cancer as a diagnosis, my conversation with people is, what an amazing opportunity to come home to yourself,
Well, that's
right?
a bright light in
Yeah.
that sense of darkness that we
Yeah.
often feel is aligned with illness or
Yeah.
disease. What's coming to me when you're sharing is, there's this power of pain that a lot
Yeah.
of the world holds.
Yeah.
That powerful pain becomes a magnet to continually draw more pain in. But
Yeah.
what that power of that pain in contrast to the awakened being in us is very small. It's very small, but there's a need when we're looking for this exterior in the world
Mhm.
justification for who we are and for our being
Yeah.
here. We're always going up a big hill, up to climb the top of a mountain and struggling. Our bodies are in pain. When we awaken to our own inner light, which I love the idea of putting the skin on, when we awaken to that, the power of that is so much faster.
Yeah.
It is so far beyond what we have thought would make us feel better, including drugs, alcohol, any kind of disease that we've been grasping. It's like there's a grasping in the
Yeah.
ego, in the world, but in the spirit and in the individual, there's a freedom in connection. There's that interior
Absolutely.
connection to the who we are here to be, and you call it. The word it keeps coming to me is your path. What is your path? How do you align with your path?
Lights you up.
What lights you up? It's a great way of saying it.
Yeah.
So you are someone who it feels as you're sharing that I would, if listening to you and not knowing anything about your story, I might say, well, that was easy for her to do. She just moved from this
Yeah.
science-based life, psychology, psychotherapy, working with trauma victim, PTSD disorder,
Yeah.
into I channel.
Yeah.
Everything you need is coming through, sit down and listen.
Yeah.
And I know that's not the case.
No,
I'm sure it's not the case.
definitely not.
And I got your book on Audible. I was listening to it for a few
Mm.
days. Yes, I've heard a story.
Yeah.
I love these programs you teach, Ascension Path, Activation. I mean,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I
picking
teach a professional Ascension practitioner certification. Yeah. Have a membership, which is called Ascension, the Ascension membership.
yes, the
Mm.
membership and then the
Yeah.
monthly attunement commitment to work
Yeah.
with a space in you that needs the attunement or however you
Yeah.
define it. But you must have had
Mm.
to make decisions in your life that you stepped further into who you really truly are that changed what was your reality.
Yeah.
And to present even now when I look at your online offerings, they're amazing. But there are probably some people in the background that said, "No, you can't do that." Do you have any story?
That's a really good thing that you said, actually. The guides are kind of chipping in a bit here, so I'm listening to what they're saying at
We'd
the
love
same
to have the
time.
guides
Yeah,
in here.
they'll don't worry, they'll be here in a moment. But they're basically reminding me to say that actually we have, and I will say this, I think a lot of people are going through this, which is probably why they're saying it. But essentially, people do go through what we might call the dark night of the soul. And when we go through that dark night, or it feels like a dark night, actually, it's a time for us to literally pretty much lose everything. And there are a lot of people going through that right now. I don't know if you've noticed that, but people are
Yes, I've
really
noticed.
ascending in the ascension pathway. And what has to happen before we ascend to our next level is we have to strip away from everything that actually is no longer a frequency match. And so you were talking earlier, you were talking about how our pain, we can attract more pain from the pain body, essentially, and that's so true. And I call it the mirror, your internal mirror, is that reflection of your external mirror. So when you look at your external mirror of your life, then that external mirror is totally your thing. It's totally what you've created. It's no one else's, it's only yours. And that's one of the things that, one of the things that for me was such a wake up call. I mean, not to that level. I had no idea it was at that level. But I remember when I became, this was my dark night of the soul. So I became, well, probably the second one actually, because obviously losing Martin was one dark night of the soul, but that was more of awakening. Whereas this one was, let's take everything away from you, right? So my partner, I had no idea how I was going to pay. You know, I had 2 babies at the time. I had, you know, my first baby who's nearly 18 now, and you know, she was little, and then I had pretty much an 8-month-old baby, and I became a single parent. My partner, the father of my children, was quite mentally unwell. And so, you know, I don't need to talk about him, but there was a really difficult situation which led me to make a decision to be a single parent. In that moment, I had no idea how I was going to do it, but I knew it was the right thing to do. And I think as a woman, or anyone actually, when you've got that feeling within you that something is 100% right, you will always be guided. So any women that are listening here, or any men actually, that are listening here that feel that they're in a situation that is absolutely not right, and that's what I'll say, it's as far as I'll go, then you know that your soul and your heart is guiding you somewhere. So anyway, I was guided that way. And I had no idea. I had no idea I was going to pay the mortgage. I had no idea how I was going to do it, but I 100% knew that I had to do it. Okay. So that led me down a journey where I had people saying, you know, that person wasn't that bad. You shouldn't have done that. You know, why do you want to do that? Why would you, you know, like kicking someone out, that kind of thing. And I was like, you know what? I've always been quite determined in my life. And I was like, this was right for me. It may not be right for you. You may not see it that way. It questions people's integrity when you do things that perhaps they wanted to do, but they didn't do it. You know, they start to think, I should have done that. I didn't have the courage. Right. And so I did have the courage, and it was hard. You know, we're talking, it was hard, but I found the understanding through, I don't know if you know Abraham Hicks, Jerry and Esther, and
Vaguely.
yeah, like people will that's listening to this. And it was the understanding of the law of attraction. And Esther and Jerry passed over actually, but Esther and Jerry used to channel Abraham. And I had the light bulb moments of my life when I listened to that. And I was like, my goodness, I attracted that. I chose that person. I attracted that person. I put myself in that situation. And I just kind of wanted to tell him, and I wanted to tell everyone. But of course, people can't always hear it. But I knew for myself, wow, that was why I had to go through what I went through. And it was a big awakening for me. And then that led me to train in EFT, emotional freedom technique. That led me to go on my journey of opening the door to many different modalities over time, not immediately, you know, just theta healing, all sorts of stuff, and EFT, you know. And I realized that I hadn't actually scratched the surface of healing until I went through that big realization that we were responsible for our own reality. Yeah. And it's quite a big one, isn't it? When you realize that, you know,
And the fun, we're sitting here, and your first time you're telling me this,
yeah.
I had the exact same experience.
See,
And it was, I had to change, or I would have drowned in the disaster I chose.
yeah.
And I love that you
And
say it like that. We're responsible
yeah,
for everything we bring into our lives.
absolutely everything.
We draw, you know, it's like a play
Yeah.
act. I'm going to draw this, create a set. I'm going to bring in the actors. I'm going to, and they're all there to teach us, you know, and there's a funny thing when you lose what you consider everything. And for me, not losing my children was, the children were everything. The other things, you know, the comfort, the safety, the sense of tomorrow, maybe things will be balanced. How you realize if there isn't something greater in the world to relate to, that you are lost. So in those moments, I, and yourself included, I let my life completely change. I
Yeah.
just said, I whatever I think I know, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and I need
Or you
guidance.
thought you did, but you didn't. when
No,
you
right.
start
I
to
thought I
see
did.
what you'd attracted and created. But it was all perfect. It was all perfect
It was
because,
perfect. Yes. Mhm.
yeah,
I just want
and
to
it,
give you that identification. Not
yeah,
alone with that thought.
it was perfect because it was hard, but it was perfect because it led us both down a journey of, I
Mhm.
suppose, self realization. And I think the biggest thing is taking responsibility for what you've said, what you've done, what you've attracted, what you've created. And I
Yes.
think once you do that, once people do that, there's no going back. Once you know that, there's no going back. You can't not know that. I know it's not English, but you can't not remember that.
You
Once you
unknow it.
get it,
Right. Right.
yeah, you can't go back from that. You have to move forward from that. And there are some oscillations between that person did that to me and how dare they do that and all that. But then you come back and you go, actually, I know that there's a part of me, and this is the deepest bit of work which I love, which is where there are nuances. So you might get to the point where you know, pretty much life is good, right? But there's always nuance. There's always little bits and pieces. And I think that's also really important to say is that, you know, we haven't got it completely sorted, right? There are always little bits and pieces that we're reflecting out. And especially when we want to go to the next level of our creation and the next level of our ascension, let's say, you know, and we're expanding and we're up leveling or we're expanding to a new audience or whatever it might be, there are always bits and pieces that come up because we're ready
Yes.
to let go of
Mhm.
another layer. So wherever anyone is and they're listening to this, wherever they are in their life and journey is perfect because they're going to the next level. You know, and everyone's wherever they're meant to be, and there's no hierarchy or ego in any of it. It just means that that's where you're being guided to go. So it might be that you're guided to awaken a little bit and realize that you were responsible for that and you can forgive yourself. And one of the things that I love about compassion and forgiveness is that we're actually forgiving ourselves. And as
Absolutely.
we're
Yeah.
forgiving ourselves, we are indirectly forgiving humanity.
Always. It,
Yeah.
it, it's always the inside. And it's all these reflections in life, everything. And I notice these things. I'm noticing all the nuance of just even starting this podcast. And I'm noticing who I'm drawn to speak to, who I'm guided to speak to. And your name was given to me. I didn't, there was no
Wow.
list. It came to
Where did
me
it
when
come from? Just a name.
I know it's well, we worked together in 2017. I looked it up. It's been a while. No, it's just I am not the creator of my day. I am here to receive what I am called to do.
I
And
love that.
I live in that unknown and I love it
Mm,
because it's always
mm.
been that way.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to align to what is. And I was
Takes a long time though, Kia,
yeah,
that
it
for people
does.
to understand that, because I'm in that as well now. But I would say that that took a long time to be in
Yes.
that present moment of not actually having an attachment,
And not having a
right?
plan.
And not
Plan.
having much of a plan. You have to have a
Not
little
much,
bit of a
no.
plan, but just a
There's
little bit.
I have a wish list for my,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
guides. I have a little wish list.
Yeah.
And I think it's mostly for me about always trying to reflect that I am open to change, that I'm
Yeah.
not at all. I'm limitless and I'm open to understanding that deeply. And there
Yeah.
is so little I do understand. So that keeps it
Mm.
exciting that I'm listening to you and I feel like we're having a session on this podcast where
Having
you're
a chat.
teaching me all this
Yeah.
good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's always this piece that I need to bring in to complete the understanding. Just keep opening that space. There's need
Same.
for more space. I need more
Yeah.
space in my life, which I
Yeah.
have. I have
And
enormous amount of space.
and I do now, and I feel like what I want everyone to feel the experience of is firstly remembering who they are, remembering that they're not on their own, and remembering that they can align fully to why they're here, and especially heal themselves. And I think that when you remember those things, like the 3 pillars of abundance, I call it, when you can remember those things, life's much easier because you're not on your own. You remember who you are. I'm a soul
Mhm.
having a human experience. I've got guides and angels around me, which are not really outside of me. They are an extension of me,
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
my higher self. And no one is apart from that. You know, you are me and I am you, right? And so there's a oneness and a unity consciousness. And when we remember that, then we don't point the finger at people, and we don't, blame people, and we don't judge people, because we're judging ourselves, right?
Yes, always.
By doing that, right?
We,
So,
on a scientific note, the energy is always the energy in us is connected to all the energy in everything living and not that it exists, whether we see what exists or not. There's times and limit. We have a limited sense of space, but there's an unlimited space. Yeah, it's just, to me, it's a logical conclusion to letting go of all the fear that
yes,
being in a human form brings, we get to be with the intergenerational fear. We get to be with what we take and do with that. And we get to say, wait, that isn't true. That is not who I am. And now I want to meet myself. I really want to meet myself. So talk to us about this wonderful program you offer a little bit.
Sure. I do you just want to say one thing though that's coming to me is, have you heard of the Higgs-Boson experiment?
No.
So I don't know the full details of it, but we're talking science here. So Higgs-Boson, they actually realized that when they were doing an experiment, I think it was some convention or something, and they were talking about it. And they realized that when they were doing an experiment, that the particles of light actually came together and combusted in this incredible frequency, a millisecond, not even a millisecond, even less than that. And it became light, and they could not recreate it. That it was such a unique consciousness that they couldn't ever recreate it. And that was when they realized that actually energy, sparks of light, was consciousness. And I think that is pretty incredible, that we won't hear about that on the news. Luckily, I don't watch the news, but you won't hear about that on the news, and you won't hear about that in general language, because when you hear that you are light and you are all powerful and you are consciousness, why would you ever want to listen to anybody else that told you what to do? Yeah, when you're all
I don't think I listen to what other people say.
Well, you might not, but a lot of people do.
I try to like the value of the human form is we have the ability to use the mind. See, the mind is kind of the doorknob.
Yeah.
When we train the mind to filter and reflect on things in a form that allows it to elevate our view, to increase our awareness, instead of I must do that. I'm judged. I need to do that.
Yeah.
And those thoughts are not there anymore. The thought I have is, I hear you. I'm listening. What am I?
It doesn't feel,
myself. Who's in here? Who do I relate to about that? How do I relate to it? And not come out of my history, right? The story behind the door,
or my little child,
or the little girl,
or my little child that says, I couldn't possibly do that.
Yeah. Well, I always bring, it's a one package deal. I bring all of me to every minute.
Do you?
Yeah, she's here. I mean, the child of, fear and disturbance, and always with me, always being loved, always being healed, and never left home.
I love that. I think that's really lovely. Yeah, that's actually a beautiful vision for people as well, to say that, there might be the parts of me that are trying to run the show that maybe aren't quite capable to run the show, but there are lots of other parts of me, like little 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds running businesses and stuff. But we have all the other parts of us that are actually, they feel loved, they feel secure, they feel safe, and they're also part of us, aren't they? Which is a really beautiful way to see it.
Yes, but it's all, there's nothing by accident. There's nothing by the coincidence. The choices that we have in ourselves, in our own mind's eye, and what we think we know, and then what we are here to do, which we signed up for, those are completely in alignment with each other. There's really no need to even begin to the thought of me being part of myself is, something I can only talk about here and there. And no, it's all okay right now. And it's one human form with one message to bring. What is that? And I try to find I have found my path, as you call it, my message. You have found your
mission. It's always evolving, though. It's always evolving.
It is always evolving, and it takes on new dimensions all the time. Yeah.
It does, absolutely. Well, excitingly, yes, my Ascension practitioner certification is, the guides at the beginning of the year, the guides at the beginning of 25, well, actually the end of 24 going into 5, started to talk to me about sharing all my processes and everything that I have used over 25 years, right? And with that I've used with my clients and my groups. And I was like, really? What, everything, everything I've created, share it, meaning share it to people to use with their clients, right? And their friends and family. And they were like, yeah. And so I put together, it took a while, and I put together the Ascension practitioner certification program. So it's a professional program and it's 6 modules, and it is, a program where I teach everything that I use. So that's from all the processes that Spirit have given me over the years, all my gorgeous trauma processes that I've been using for the years. I'm handing them over to people, and everything that I have developed over the years to bring people to a place where they can truly align to who they're meant to be. And so it starts very basic. When we work with people, sometimes people are not in their bodies, as you know, and they're in deep trauma and they're not in their bodies. It's really hard for people to even go to another place without being grounded and in their body. So that's the basic stuff like compassion and EFT and things like that. And then right to the other end of the program, where I'm teaching my Ascension pathway sessions, we're doing sound healing, Akashic records, all sorts of stuff, where it goes to the other end. And then how to professionally be in the world. And I decided that this year, every single person that's on my program, this is my beta program, will actually go onto my website as a practitioner. So I don't do a lot of one-to-ones these days, but I wanted to have a page so that when people go to my website, they find the practitioner page and people can go on and they can choose who they want to work with.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. So I wanted to honor everyone, that's coming on the program to do that. So what's really beautiful is that every single week, whether I'm in the UK or I'm somewhere else, I run a support call. And that support call is always live. It's recorded as well, but it's always live. And it is an opportunity for everyone on the program to talk to me, share anything that they feel they're stuck with, or anything that's actually happening with them in their personal lives. And we do healings, we do activations. I take them through many different things to help them on their journey. And we do that every single week. So without fail, because I do travel quite a lot. Wherever I am in the world, I turn up at that time on the Thursday and we all meet together. And so I really love that. That for me is that I've done many programs in my life. We all have, right? And I'm not very good at being left to my own devices. I'm very good if I have someone who is kind of nurturing me along the way. And I have this kind of show up thing where I have to show up. And that's what I wanted for people. So I wanted to be there for people to do that. And that's what I do on my Ascension practitioner program.
We'll find that program if they're interested.
You can find that on my website. Yeah. Okay. But people are very welcome to, book a free discovery call with me and have a chat with me, and I'll tune in and, we can find out if it's a fit really for them. Bring the guides in. Yeah. And we'll have a chat. People tend to find me when they're really ready to catapult into their true mission. It tends to be what I attract. We're talking about attraction, right? So I tend to attract people that really have something within them and they're like, I know I'm meant to be doing this in the world. And I know that in 2026 and onwards that we're going to have more people that need support. I know the guides have told me that we've got new waves of consciousness happening within us, portals of consciousness. And so more people are going to be saying, okay, that old way doesn't work anymore, meaning perhaps that old song, the drugs don't work, or, perhaps talking about something till the cows come home doesn't work anymore. Perhaps we need to go a bit deeper. Perhaps we need to remember who we are, that kind of thing. And people are starting to question life. So it felt very timely, So it's beautiful.
I'm going to ask you a hard question. So when I listen to this beautiful gift you give on Fridays, right?
My
on
YouTube
YouTube.
channel.
Yes,
Yeah,
and you
which
yes,
is
and
free.
I just hold my hand on my heart and you
Mm,
guide us through.
yes.
So, do you when you get a vibration and an
Mhm.
energy that's outside of you, it feels like it's outside of you and very powerful, and it speaks in a language we don't know.
Oh, light language, you mean
The
like
light language. So, how do you receive those and understand them yourself?
yeah, wow. So this is definitely a question, right? This is
It's a
another
difficult question.
so it's not difficult. It's just it takes us to a new level. So if we imagine, that's the best way to say it, right? So if we imagine the chipping in now, this is the galactics here now. If you imagine the frequency that we are, so the more that we clear and raise our frequency of light, so we're holding more light as a crystalline being of light. So the more that we hold that crystalline light coming through us, the more we're holding ascension light, which is rainbow frequency and holds the full spectrum, right? So the more we hold that, the different frequency of guidance works with us. So the more we ascend to and we let go of what you were talking about, like the old traumas, the old belief systems, we could call it density. So the more we get rid of the dusty bits in our field and the density,
I like that word.
yeah, the kind of dusting it away, the more we become lighter, the guides that are of a higher frequency, not in ego or anything like that, but in a higher frequency that are coming in to help us in this planet, they come and they blend. So mediumship, for example, with loved ones is a different frequency. They have to come in and they blend with our energy. But the higher frequency guides, the light beings, the ascended masters, Melchizedek, for example, Mother Mary, Jeshua, all of those beings, and the galactics, many galactics, they come in and they hold a frequency that's different. So when they hold that frequency and you match to that frequency, you can, and this, I know it's complicated, but you can hear. Yeah. So you can hear. How can I explain it? So,
You hear
so
without you hear beyond the
I beyond hearing. So what's
right, right.
happened over the last year, I would say, is that I've had to step out. So that doesn't mean spirit takes over or anything like that. I'm not that kind of medium or channel. But I can feel myself here and I can feel spirit coming in closer. And so I can hear everything that is coming through.
Mhm.
So I'm expect they'll come through if we've got time and channel a little bit of information if you want me to.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, of
we'll
course.
see. We'll
I
see.
can't say no.
Well, it's up to you. It's your show.
I love what you do, so I
Yeah, okay. We'll see. We'll do a bit of healing and a bit of channeling. So what happens is I feel myself kind of, I can feel that they want to come in and speak. So I know who it is and they'll tell me they're who they are, but it can be sometimes a collective, sometimes it's Syrian High Council, sometimes it's Palladians, whoever. And I'll hear who it is and I'll see them kind of like edging in, and then I get out of the way. It took me a long time to get out of the way because being a scientist, I like to be involved and know and, have the evidence. So I had to get out of the way and I had to allow them. And that was hard. It was hard for me because I interfered a bit and wanted to come in and then it stopped. So I just now allow them to come in and I just listen and I hear it. And the light language that you're talking about that comes through quite often on a 5-minute frequency tune up on my YouTube channel, that light frequency holds encoding that the soul recognizes. So the language that comes through holds a light frequency. So they still can come through and speak, English, but when they come through with the light language, it bypasses the mind. So it goes straight to the soul, and the soul recognizes that. And that's where deep healing happens because we're not in our head.
now I love what you said, and I totally understand in my own body that experience because this gentleman I go see, who I was in London seeing, he uses light frequencies to elevate and
Yeah,
clear areas, clear the body and align
amazing.
to bring alignment. So I understand it, felt it. So that's just amazing. It's not, I mean, from what you're sharing, it would be helpful to the world, I believe, for
Mm,
the light frequencies to be
come
coming
through.
through all the time, to just be on a
Yeah, but
constant
it's free
kind of a
will, isn't it?
they probably what? I'm sorry.
It's free will, isn't it? I mean, it's like, I mean, I can hear them now, right? And I'm asking them to step back because I'm having a conversation with you. So I can hear them and I can hear the light language. And it's hard for me to stop it because they want to come in and do something. And I have the power to say, step back, right? Because it's my free will, right? I can
Sure.
choose.
Yes.
And so you could do the same. One of
Yes,
the
I
things I
do when
teach.
I'm ready. I let
Yeah.
things flow. Yes.
Yeah. And one of the things that I teach big time is that we have the power to ask spirit to step out, and we have the power to ask spirit to step in and help us and
Yes,
assist
we
us.
do.
I mean, there may come a time where we're all walking about this planet speaking light language and we're not actually speaking our,
Mhm.
language that we've created.
Well, and
Yeah.
right. Well, and Susan, wouldn't it make sense that my opinion of the human condition is we create separate language, separate society, separate
Yeah.
cultures so we can stay separated?
Yeah.
That in reality there is a one connected language of energy,
Yes.
that we are no different from any other being that walks in any form,
Yeah.
and we have no separation.
There is no
And if that's
separation.
the light language, then
Mm.
I'm in. I'm in the field. We're in the field of that receiving. So I receive what I
Yeah.
do when I work with others is I get a receiving
Yeah.
of direct information that's incredibly clear and unique and specific,
Yeah.
and it has no variability. It has no need to be interpreted, and I certainly never interpret it. It is not
And
for me
and
to
and I
change
think
it.
that's good because I think we can get in our heads quite a lot and wonder what it's about, but actually you can feel it.
Hmm.
Say I'm working with someone and the guides will come in and there'll be an activation or whatever it might be, or groups I run. I can just feel that I know they want to bring an activation through, and I'll know what it's about, but I don't know exactly what they are saying or the specifics of what they're saying, but I can feel it and I can see it as well. But I get shown something in front of me and it will be the depiction of what they are doing. I can't really explain that to you, but say I see mountains or I see whatever it might be, it will be because they're bringing somebody to a place of peace, or they're bringing somebody to a place of oneness, or whatever it might be. Yeah. But it's really hard to explain light language, just as that it is light codes. And we are becoming so much more a light code that we're able to receive these codes and assimilate them within our whole self now.
So, how do you spell your last name so people can look you up?
Kennard. Yeah, my YouTube channel is just my name.
Yes.
So
All
pretty
right.
much everything about me is my name. So it's Susan Kennard, Kennard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Susan Kennard. Anyone who's listening can find you and will.
Yeah.
Wow. If I were to give a gift to everyone listening, it would be for them to have an experience with you, to do that, to give themselves the opportunity to be enlightened about the light in themselves, to
Awaken the
enlighten.
light within.
Yeah. And just open
Mm.
that door and leave it wide open and take it off the
Yeah.
hinges and find your own beautiful, magical, magnetic field that you have been gifted with and your being is here to give. We all have something to contribute. I think we all have this unique piece that is a refinement that gives us all that more and greater sense of connection. That every time someone awakens, every individual and all throughout is helped by that. We are helped by that.
And I believe that Mother Earth, we are, as we enlighten ourselves and awaken and remember who we are more and more and more, then the earth is healing as well, because we are part of that.
Yeah, we are. Yes, we
Yeah.
are. So any last minute, parting thoughts from
Oh, yeah, we can bring them in. But I do want to say that I have a
you're feeling
children's book.
Are you ready for
I
that?
d- yeah. I can
Yeah,
I
you're
can be there
okay. All
ready in
right.
a
I don't
second.
want to, push this.
But I want to tell people about the children's book that I wrote last year, and that's called The Guardian Wings. And I wrote that book for children so that they could remember who they are. And it's a magical world for children to read and for parents to read for them. And it's in a lot of nurseries, which is really great. And lots of people are reading it. And it's set in a magical world with a magical tree and unicorns and fairies and animals and children and guides and angels, of course. Yeah.
Where can we get this book?
Amazon. You can get all my books
Okay.
on Amazon. So, yeah. And on my website.
I'll be getting that as well.
Oh, what children's book?
Oh, I love children's books.
I'll show you it. Show you. I know we're doing this on video, on audio, but this is the, can you see it?
Oh, The Guardian with Beautiful. That's amazing. Okay, I will be ordering it.
It's actually my children.
Oh,
and our animals. Our animals are in there and the children are in there. And I wrote it.
Are they with the same, did you give them the same names in the book? Oh, okay.
Animals. Yeah, the animals. But they're obviously a lot older now, my children.
Well, I imagine they're very much on their own abilities path.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Or let me see.
Okay.
Let me see who's around. Who wants to come in and just have a few words? Actually, this is the Ascended. See the smile I have is because of they're bringing in so much love and so much excitement to share this energy with you. Just for the purpose of the audio, I can feel myself kind of being pulled back a little bit, which we spoke about, and I can feel the energy in my heart just for the purpose of the audio, so people can kind of get a sense of it, and then they may hear a different energy come through. Okay. We are indeed the Ascended Masters, and we do work with this channel, and we do come with so much love for you, for humanity. And you have spoken, and there has been a conversation about the expansion of consciousness and the expansion of humanity itself. And we do come here to help you understand that there is nothing wrong with you, that there is nothing that is incomplete within you, that we are here, and as we see you, as you are listening to this transmission, we see you as perfect in your light. And we honor you for taking this journey, for walking this path in this physicality, in this human form that you have chosen at this time. And we honor you for this. We wish to tell you, as perhaps you might say, a parting thought or an end thought, just to let you know that you are never on your own, that you are always walking a path with many, and that you are all connected. And as the channel that this channel is speaking to has said to you, that there is no separation, and this is true. There is no separation between you. There is no separation between anyone on this planet, or any flower, or any animal, or any blade of grass, or any crystal or stone. There is no separation with the sea and the sand and the sunlight and the sky and the clouds. There is no separation, that you are one. And if you could imagine yourself as a spark of light, a spark of consciousness that is just sharing this world for a very limited time, remember that this spark of you knows exactly why you chose, knows exactly why you came, knows exactly the people and the places you were meant to experience. There is nothing wrong with you. You have done nothing wrong. You are perfect in our eyes, and we love you and we support you. Oh, it takes a bit for me to come back.
Thank you, Ascended Masters. Thank you for the it's a song of truth and sensitivity to all beings. Yeah. Such a gorgeous vibration.
So could you see they were very much around here to the right side, and really strong tonight, really strong, wanting to give a message. And of course, I can't remember it, but I get a sense that it was something about humanity. And that's all I can remember.
You'll hear it later. You're a vessel of just generosity. You just bring a generosity to the work you do that I can feel when you share and when they come through. You're very far reaching. Beyond what you intellectually know, there's much more going on for you, and way beyond the waves of this platform. So much bigger than that. Just energy that flows everywhere.
I just ask, I ask what all that I ask is, how can I best serve? That's all I say. And, opportunities come, and I share whatever I feel guided to share, if it helps people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. You're speaking somewhere soon, right?
Yeah, speaking at, if anyone's heard of Barbara O'Neill, she's an amazing woman, Australian woman. She's headlining an event. It's called the Wellness Way Festival. It's in Hertfordshire in England. You can find that on my social media and on my newsletter. And I'm running a workshop, an Ascension workshop, and I'm also running a panel for women. So I'm looking forward to that.
That looks fabulous. I
Yeah.
looked it up. It's a little bit not on my current travel path, but maybe
Yeah.
next year. That's a really interesting part of the country.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
8-8 portal as well. So it's the Lions Gate. So it's the 8th, 9th, and 10th. I'm speaking the 9th and 10th. And it's within that beautiful portal. So I'm excited. I'm giving loads of free gifts away as well. I'm giving a month in my membership. I'm giving all sorts of freebies.
Beautiful.
So if people are interested and they're listening in the UK, come along.
Please go. Yes, please go. And a lot and turn the light on, your own light.
Yeah, turn your
And
own
take
light
the
on.
door and off the hinges and just keep walking towards yourself and your light. Susan, thank you so much for today. I
Thank
know we
you,
had
Kia.
a little bit of a hiccup last time we tried to connect, and I'm so glad it
It was all
happened.
perfect.
It was
all
perfect.
perfect, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Much
Thank
love.
you to all the forces and energy and guides that come through you. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Great love. We want to thank the following people: Jennifer Maidman for original music. Listen to her on iTunes and Spotify. Drew English of Upstate Podcast Studio for sound and recording engineering. And all our executive producers. See you next time.